Your car has been trying to warn you for weeks, maybe months. You just haven't been listening. There is no such thing as a car that fails without warning. Not one. Every seized engine, every destroyed transmission, every breakdown on the side of the road, all of them were preceded by signs. Sounds, smells, feelings through the wheel or the seat that were different from before. The car was talking. The driver wasn't listening. Today, we're counting down 16 of the most common warning signs that drivers ignore every single day. What each one means, what happens inside the car when you keep ignoring it, and exactly how much it costs. Some of these signs, caught early, are $100 to $300 repair. Left alone, $5,000, $7,000 in damage. The only difference is how fast you paid attention. The number one sign on this list, something millions of drivers experience every month, and almost none of them act on. Let's count it down. Number 16. Your car smells like candy, not perfume, not air freshener. A faint sweetness like maple syrup or candy that drifts into the cabin when you park or when you turn the heater on. You notice it, you think it's strange. Then you get used to it and stop thinking about it. That is exactly how coolant leaks destroy engines. That sweet smell is ethylene glycol, the primary component of antifreeze. It has a chemical sweetness unlike anything else in a car's environment. And when you're smelling it, coolant is escaping from somewhere it shouldn't. The possible sources range from a cracked hose to a weeping radiator seam to a failing water pump gasket. Those are the manageable ones. Then there's the head gasket, the seal between the engine block and the cylinder head. When coolant starts leaking past a head gasket, even a little, even slowly, the sweet smell is often the first thing you notice. Long before the temperature gauge moves, long before anything else seems wrong. Here's the problem. Coolant is what keeps your engine from overheating. As the level drops from a slow leak, the engine's ability to manage its own temperature quietly degrades. You don't feel it. You don't see it. Until one day the temperature gauge climbs and the damage is already done. A cracked hose caught early, $50 to $150. A water pump, $300 to $600. Head gasket repair, $1,000 to $2,500. That sweet smell has a very clear pathway to the most expensive repair on that list. When you smell something sweet in or around your car, check the coolant level today. Not this weekend. Today. Number 15. Your brakes are screaming at you. And you're turning the music up. There's a faint squeal every time you slow down. You've noticed it. You've thought about it. And then you've kept driving. What you don't realize is that squeal was designed, engineered into your brake pads on purpose. Modern brake pads have a small metal tab embedded in the friction material at a very specific depth. When the pad wears down to a certain point, that tab contacts the rotor and produces a high-pitched squeal. It's not damage, it's a warning system. The car is telling you, through sound, that the countdown has started. Most drivers hear it for weeks before doing anything. Here's what happens when you wait too long. The friction material wears completely through. Now, it's metal backing plate against rotor. The squeal becomes a grinding. The rotor, which was fine, starts getting scored and damaged by the metal contact. One problem becomes two problems. Brake pad replacement, $150 to $300. Brake pads and rotors because you waited too long, $300 to $600 per axle. And beyond the money, worn-through brakes don't stop the car the same way. In an emergency stop, the difference in stopping distance is real. It is the kind of difference that matters. Your brakes are already talking. The only question is whether you're going to listen before or after it gets expensive. Number 14. There's a spot on your driveway. Small, Dark. Been there a week or two. The car drives fine. Nothing on the dashboard. Probably nothing. Here is what nobody tells you about small fluid leaks. They are not small fluid leaks. They are the beginning of large fluid leaks. Gaskets, seals, and hoses don't fail all at once. They degrade gradually, from heat, from pressure, from age. What starts as a weep becomes a drip. The drip becomes a flow. And while all of that is developing invisibly, the fluid doing the leaking is also doing a critical job inside your car. Oil is keeping the engine alive. Coolant is keeping it from overheating. Transmission fluid is keeping the gearbox from destroying itself. Brake fluid is literally what makes your brakes function. That last one deserves its own moment. A brake fluid leak doesn't have to be large to introduce air into the braking system. Air in the lines means a soft pedal. A soft pedal means reduced stopping power. This is not a comfort issue. This is a safety issue. How to identify what's under the car? Oil is dark brown to black. Coolant is green, orange, or pink. Brake fluid is clear to light yellow. Transmission fluid is red. A gasket leak caught early, $150 to $300. The same leak ignored until oil reaches hot exhaust components and you have a fire risk. Much more, much faster, and much more urgent. Don't walk past that spot every morning without doing anything. It's the car asking for help before things get serious. Number 13. Your car clicks every time you turn. Tight corner. Parking lot maneuver. Every time the wheel goes to a sharp angle, there's a click or a pop from somewhere up front. Consistent. Predictable. Gets louder the sharper the turn. You've been hearing it for months. The car drives fine. You've accepted it as part of how the car sounds now. It isn't part of how the car sounds. It's a CV joint failing in slow motion. CV joints allow your front axle shafts to transmit power to the wheels while the wheels turn and move. Packed with grease, sealed inside a rubber boot. When that boot cracks, the grease escapes, contamination gets in, and the joint starts to wear. The clicking on turns is that worn joint moving through its range of motion under load. Here's what makes this so important to act on now. While it's clicking, you can replace the CV axle shaft, $200 to $450 per side, including labor. Manageable. While you're ignoring the click, the joint keeps deteriorating. The clicking becomes crunching. And if you ignore the crunching long enough, the joint can separate while you're driving. Loss of power to that wheel. Potential loss of steering control. The clicking is the window. Once it becomes crunching, that window is closing. Once the joint separates, the window is gone. Every time you hear that click and keep driving, the repair bill gets a little larger and the risk gets a little higher. Number 12. Your lights are trying to tell you something. Dashboard lights slightly dimmer than they used to be. Interior light flickers for a split second when you turn on a heavy electrical load. Headlights that seem brighter at highway speed than at idle. It's subtle. It comes and goes. Easy to write off as a quirk. It's not a quirk. It's your electrical system becoming unstable. The most likely cause is a failing alternator, the component that generates electricity while the car runs and powers every system in it. A healthy alternator produces stable voltage. A failing one fluctuates. When electrical load increases, there isn't enough power to go around. Lights dim, flicker, react. The second possibility is corroded or loose battery terminals, creating resistance in the circuit. Same symptoms, simpler fix. Here's what this is actually about. Every critical system in a modern car runs on electricity. Fuel injection, ignition, ABS, stability control, electric power steering. If the electrical supply is unstable, every one of these systems is operating on unreliable power. And if the alternator fails completely, the battery takes over. The battery drains. Lights go dim progressively. The car slows, then stops, possibly on the highway. Alternator replacement, $300 to $600. Battery terminal service, $50 to $150. Flickering lights are a polite warning. Pay attention while they're still polite. Number 11. Something is burning, and it's not supposed to be. You park, you step out, and there's a sharp, acrid smell around the car. Or it drifts through the vents while you're driving. Something chemical, something burnt. No smoke. Nothing visually wrong. You figure something on the road got on the exhaust and burnt off. Sometimes that's what it is. A brief smell, then nothing. Fine. A burning smell that keeps coming back under the same conditions every time is not road debris. It is a symptom. The most common cause is an oil leak reaching a hot surface. A gasket or seal weeping oil onto the exhaust manifold. The oil burns off and produces that acrid smell every time the engine gets hot. Evidence of a leak that needs addressing and a fire risk in the same moment. The second cause is a brake caliper that is sticking. A caliper that doesn't fully release keeps constant pressure on the rotor. That wheel's brake is essentially always partially on. Continuous heat generation, burning rubber and hot metal smell. Most noticeable after city driving with lots of stops and starts. The third, transmission fluid on hot surfaces. A specific, sharp smell when it overheats or leaks. If you see smoke with the smell, pull over immediately. Oil leak early, $150 to $400. Sticking caliper, $200 to $450. Let either develop secondary damage, and you're multiplying those numbers. Same burning smell, same conditions, every time. Something is hot that has no business being hot. Number 10. Your engine shakes when you stop. Red light. The car shudders. The RPM needle flutters slightly. You can feel it in the seat through the steering wheel. The moment you accelerate, it smooths out. Next stop, it happens again. Most drivers decide this is just how the car idles. It never was. A rough idle is a specific diagnosable problem. The engine is communicating, and what it's saying is that at least one cylinder isn't doing its job. The most common cause is a misfire. A cylinder that isn't firing correctly, almost always because of a worn spark plug or a failing ignition coil. At idle, where the engine is producing minimal power, an uneven cylinder is felt immediately. Under acceleration, the other cylinders compensate enough that you may not feel it as clearly. But the misfire is still happening. Every single cycle. A misfiring cylinder sends unburned fuel straight to the catalytic converter, a component never designed to process raw fuel. Damage accumulates. Catalytic converter replacement, $800 to $2,000. Spark plugs, $100 to $250. Ignition coil, $150 to $350. The shutter at the red light is telling you which way you're headed. Number 9. Your transmission is hesitating. The light turns green. You press the accelerator. And there's a pause, a half second where nothing happens before the car actually moves. Or a subtle shudder when the gearbox shifts up under light acceleration. Comes and goes. Some days you barely notice it. You've been rationalizing it for months. This is what automatic transmission failure looks like in its early stages. And the early stages are the only affordable ones. 3 possible causes: low or degraded transmission fluid, a failing shift solenoid, or early internal wear of the clutch packs. Fluid low or degraded. The hydraulic pressure that drives every gear change becomes inconsistent. Shifts go sluggish. A failing solenoid works intermittently, sometimes smooth, sometimes hesitant. Which is exactly why people convince themselves it isn't serious. Here is the truth about transmission problems. They do not get better. They progress. The hesitation that's occasional today is frequent and pronounced in 3 months. Transmission fluid service, $100 to $250. Solenoid replacement, $200 to $500. Transmission rebuild or replacement, which is where this leads if you keep waiting, $2,000 to $4,500. Not a wait-and-see situation. Number 8. The wrong color is coming out of your exhaust. Cold morning, white vapor from the exhaust, completely normal. Condensation burning off, gone in 60 seconds. Ignore it. What you may not know is that the color of abnormal exhaust smoke tells you exactly what is wrong inside the engine. Thick white smoke that continues after the engine is fully warm is not condensation. It is coolant burning inside the combustion chamber. The head gasket has failed. Coolant is getting past it, vaporizing in the cylinder, and exiting through the exhaust. The engine is losing coolant internally. And head gasket failures do not stabilize on their own. Blue or blue-gray smoke means oil is burning inside the combustion chamber. Worn piston rings or valve seals. Blue smoke at cold start that clears, valve seals. Blue smoke under acceleration, piston rings. Either way, the engine is consuming its own oil and quietly approaching a much larger failure. Black smoke means the engine is burning too much fuel. Usually a faulty injector or sensor feeding bad data to the engine management system. Fuel wasted. Catalytic converter under stress. Head gasket repair, $1,000 to $2,500. Piston ring or valve seal work, $1,000 to over $3,000. The color tells you exactly what is wrong. If you see it, get a diagnosis immediately. We are now in the top 5. Different category. These are the warnings that end engines, that produce bills that sometimes exceed what the car is worth. Every single one gives you a window to act before the damage becomes irreversible. Pay very close attention. Number 7. Your gearbox is grinding. Manual transmission, you shift and instead of the smooth, quiet engagement that should be there, you hear a grinding. Maybe only going into one specific gear. Maybe more when you shift in a hurry. Maybe something you've unconsciously started timing your shifts to avoid. Automatic transmission. A harsh clunk or grinding sensation during a gear change. Something that feels wrong every time it happens. Neither of these is normal. Neither of these is a quirk to adapt to. In a manual gearbox, that grinding is almost always worn synchronizers, or a clutch that isn't fully disengaging. Synchronizers are the components that match the rotational speed of the gear you're selecting to the speed of the shaft, allowing the gear to slide in cleanly and quietly. When they wear, they can no longer perform that function. The gears grind as they attempt to mesh. A clutch that doesn't fully release when you press the pedal creates the same effect. You're changing gear while the engine and gearbox are still partially connected. In an automatic, grinding or harsh clunking during shifts points to worn clutch packs, low fluid, or internal components beginning to fail. The damage is progressive and self-compounding. What begins as difficulty with one gear spreads as the wear generates debris, and the debris accelerates more wear. Clutch replacement, $600 to $1,200. Synchronizer repair, $800 to over $2,000, depending on how far the damage has spread. Every shift made while that grinding is happening is adding to the bill. Number 6. The temperature gauge is climbing in traffic. You know where your temperature gauge normally sits, middle of the range, steady. But lately, in slow traffic, at long red lights, on hot days, it moves. Upper third, comes back down when you're moving again. Nothing in the red yet. What you're watching is your cooling system running out of margin. The most likely cause is a cooling fan not working correctly. Modern vehicles use electric fans to blow air across the radiator when the car is stationary or in slow traffic, exactly when natural airflow isn't enough. If that fan is failing, the engine loses its primary cooling mechanism precisely when it needs it most. Second possibility, a partially blocked radiator. Years of mineral deposits restricting internal passages. At highway speed, airflow compensates. In stop and go, it doesn't. A slow coolant leak reducing fluid level has exactly the same effect. No buffer left. One hotter day, one longer traffic jam. The gauge crosses into the danger zone. And the danger zone, as you're about to see, is not somewhere you want to be. Cooling fan, $200 to $500. Radiator flush, $100 to $200. Radiator replacement, $300 to $600. Fix it while it's struggling. Number 5. The engine is knocking. A sound that wasn't there before. A rhythmic knock. A deep thud at idle that gets faster as the revs climb. Started quietly, getting louder. Maybe you've told yourself it's a heat shield, something in the exhaust, a valve tick. And a light tapping from the upper engine can be exactly that. A deep, heavy rhythmic knock from the lower engine is not a valve tick. That is a rod bearing failing. The connecting rods link each piston to the crankshaft. Each rides on a precision bearing surface kept in place by a film of pressurized engine oil. When that film disappears, from low oil pressure, critically low oil level, or oil too degraded to maintain pressure, the rod develops play on the crankshaft journal. As the crankshaft spins at engine speed, the rod knocks against it. Heavy, rhythmic, getting faster with every rise in RPM. This is the sound of an engine destroying itself from the inside, one revolution at a time. You cannot drive this and fix it later. Every revolution makes it worse. And when that connecting rod finally lets go, it can punch straight through the engine block. Engine bearing repair if caught now, $1,500 to $3,000. Full rebuild, $3,000 to $6,000. Replacement, $4,000 to $8,000. Engine knocking, stop driving it today. Not this week, today. Number 4. The oil pressure light is flickering. The small icon that looks like an old oil can. It appeared for a few seconds, at a red light, briefly on the highway, then went off. You've been watching for it. It hasn't come back. Probably a glitch. This demands an immediate response. The oil pressure warning light is not the service reminder. It is not telling you the oil is old. It is telling you the engine's oil pressure dropped below the minimum safe threshold, even if only for a few seconds. Even if it went out again. Oil pressure drives the film of oil between every moving metal surface inside the engine. When pressure drops, even briefly, that film thins or vanishes. Metal approaches metal at thousands of RPM. A brief flicker might mean the oil level is just low enough that a sharp corner momentarily uncovers the pickup tube. It might mean the oil pressure sensor is failing. Or early oil pump wear. Sensor failing. Inexpensive. Genuinely low pressure. Every time that light flickered, the engine had a moment without adequate lubrication. Check the oil level the moment you see it. If the level is correct and the light returns, do not drive further before having oil pressure tested with a gauge. Oil pressure sensor, $100 to $250. Oil pump, $300 to $600. What happens when this is ignored is number 5. Number 3. Your car smells like gasoline. Not near a gas station. Not a faint trace while fueling. A clear, persistent smell of raw fuel inside the cabin, near the back of the car, or underneath it after you've parked. Strongest right after startup or when the engine is warm. Stop what you're doing. This requires an immediate response. A persistent fuel smell means raw, unburned fuel is present somewhere outside of where it's supposed to be. The sources include a leaking injector allowing excess fuel into the intake, a cracked fuel line seeping fuel onto hot engine surfaces, a failing fuel pressure regulator, or a compromised fuel tank. Fuel is flammable. A fuel leak in an enclosed engine bay, near a hot exhaust manifold, near electrical components, that's not a theoretical fire risk. It is a fire risk waiting for the right conditions. Engine fires from fuel leaks happen. They happen fast. If you smell fuel outside the car before you start it, do not start it. If you smell fuel inside the car while you're driving, windows down immediately and pull over at the first safe opportunity. In either case, the car does not move further until someone has found where that fuel is coming from. Fuel injector replacement, $150 to $450. Fuel line repair, $100 to $400. These are straightforward repairs. Inexpensive repairs. The alternative is not a repair. The alternative is a fire. This smell gets acted on immediately, every single time. Number 2. The temperature gauge is climbing fast. This is completely different from number 6. Number 6 was the gauge rising gradually during slow traffic and coming back down. That was a cooling system under stress. Concerning, but manageable. This is the gauge climbing faster than it should from startup, or rising unexpectedly on the highway, or moving erratically instead of sitting stable. This is the cooling system failing in real time. It happens when a thermostat fails closed, trapping coolant in the engine. When a coolant hose bursts and coolant is lost rapidly. When the water pump fails and coolant stops moving. Here is what an overheated engine looks like afterward. The aluminum cylinder head expands beyond its tolerances. It warps. A warped head can no longer seal the head gasket. Combustion gases escape. Coolant enters the combustion chamber. White smoke. Milky oil. Coolant that keeps disappearing no matter how much you add. Head gasket replacement. $1,000 to $2,500. Drive harder while significantly overheated and the cylinder head cracks. The block cracks. Piston seize. These are not repairs. They are replacements. $3,000 to $6,000 for a rebuild. $4,000 to $8,000 or more for an engine. On many vehicles, a destroyed engine totals the car. The moment the gauge climbs and won't stabilize, pull over. Engine off. Not at the next exit. Now. Thermostat, $100 to $250. Water pump, $300 to $600. All fixable. All affordable. Driving through overheating is how engines die. Get off the road. Number 1. The oil pressure light is on. And it's staying on. Not flickering. Not appearing briefly at a stoplight and going out again. On. Steady. Staying on. This is the most critical warning a car can give you. And it is the one that, when ignored, produces the most complete and irreversible destruction. What it means? The engine's oil pressure has fallen below the minimum safe threshold and is not recovering. The film of oil that separates every moving metal surface inside the engine from every other, the film that is the only thing preventing catastrophic internal contact, is gone. Right now, with that light on, metal is running against metal at thousands of revolutions per minute. Every second the engine continues to run causes damage. Bearing surfaces scoring, crankshaft journals wearing, and this damage does not plateau, it accelerates. As bearing clearances widen, pressure drops further. As pressure drops, more surfaces lose lubrication. The end of that progression is a connecting rod punching through the engine block from the inside. The car is not repairable after that. The cause might be fixable. Oil critically low from a leak. A failed oil pump. A pickup screen blocked with sludge, but none of it can be resolved by continuing to drive. It can only be diagnosed with the engine stopped. When the oil pressure light comes on and stays on. Foot off the throttle. Signal. Pull over. Engine off. Do not restart it. Do not try to make it home. Do not try to reach the next exit. Stop the car. Call for a tow and a diagnosis. A few $100 to $600 depending on what they find. Engine replacement or rebuild, $4,000 to $10,000 or more. The oil pressure light is not a warning. It is the car's emergency alarm. There is no appointment, no schedule, no destination that justifies driving through it. When it comes on and stays on, you stop the car. That is the only correct response. It is the only response there is. Your car never fails without warning. That is the single most important thing to take from everything we covered today. Every sign on this list was the car communicating, trying to get the driver's attention before the situation became irreversible. Caught early, a few $100. Ignored, thousands. Sometimes the car. Most drivers watching this have ignored at least 3 or 4 of these signs at some point, not out of carelessness. Because nobody ever explained what the signs meant and what was waiting at the end of ignoring them. Now you know. So tell me in the comments, which one surprised you the most? And which one are you dealing with in your own car right now? Because someone watching this just recognized something. If that's you, go check the car.